really. And we went, oh, God.
Wishing I could hear your voice again, knowing that
I used to sit beside Andrew in the stalls, and at that point he would say to me, "You can't hear Sarah, Michael's very loud," and I would have to grab him by the leg as he legged it up the aisle, pulling Michael's fader down a little bit and then pushing up Christine, and so I worked out very many ways of distracting him.
Rumours reached the press that the once harmonious union was out of tune.
The press heard the marriage was not in a very stable situation. I mean, that's what I first remember it actually coming from, was the way that, because the photographers and everybody was hanging outside the stage door, and Sarah was in tears a lot.
I must ask you, what has it been like working with your husband?
the same as it always has been. I mean, ever since I've been married to my husband or been with him, we've worked together, so it's absolutely no different at all.
There have been stories about how you shout at each other and stay apart from each other outside.
I must warn you, they are subject to a major libel action at the moment.
Ah, thank you for that warning.
The show was teetering on the verge of disaster. Then the veteran director showed his mettle.
Oops. All right, hold it a minute, please. Now, what is the cue to bring this elephant out? Because it's too late.
I'm a paranoid director. If you look at your watch, as I do at other people's shows, that's a dangerous thing. If you start to talk, and God knows if you nod off, it's dangerous.
Some scenes simply had to go.
Yes. Well, we thought because it was the Paris Opera, you know, that there would be quite a lot of dancing.
I had 6 brilliant little dancers, most of whom were principal dancers, had been principal dancers in ballet companies. So they were quite sure of themselves, you know, and at the last minute they made me cut a sort of lovely swoopy thing that I had to cut, and my dancers were so upset.
And we were all so furious, and I remember I got my point shoes and went through them across the room.
And you said something like, you know, we're all ballerinas here, you know, here we are doing stuff for corps de ballet. And it was, we were just sort of doing little poses here.
So we were quite upset.
All right, can we go on? Please take your lights out, and let's go into this cue.
Hal's in a way in his element with all of that, and he sits there and he yells and he masterminds it, and he just went, wow, you know, and it.
The previews were over. The show was about to open. On the 8th of October, Princess Diana turned up to a special gala performance, which did nothing to calm the producer's nerves.
We were paralysed drunk on the opening night. I can't remember which bar we went into. We're much more objective in the bar across the road than being in the auditorium.
I wasn't on stage, so past me, I mean, it was horrible, really. And, you know, of course that was the night that I wanted Sarah to trip up on the way downstairs before her first entrance. I would have paid good money for it.
But would Sarah silence her critics?
The amazing thing was how good she was. I mean, by any standard you wanted to measure her. And the standards that were being applied to her were probably inhumanly unkind.
Love me, that's all I ask of you.
Something happened that night. Everything just started to click. We felt, oh, maybe we're going to be okay. And the show went through the roof. You could just sense the electricity in the air. We knew that we'd crossed that barrier.
But the biggest shock was the man known as Frank Spencer.
Say
you share with me one love, one lifetime?
My heart was saying to me, he can't do this, he doesn't do this, he's, ooh, Betty.
From my solitude.
And then he sang, and I thought, he's got a good voice.
Of course, a lot of us went to sit and see if Michael could sing. And we were shocked. He was damn good.
I just remember the audience reaction to the show. It was astonishing. It was just astonishing.
Emotions are coming back. The whole theater just got up and screamed. It's impossible to explain it. The feeling, you know, your heart was thumping like anything.
Then the reviews started to come in the next morning. I've never read or heard anything like it. I spent more time in tears that day, after all the years you've been acting, that you were reading such things about a show that you were in was the most thrilling morning of my life.
But not everyone was impressed.
I saw it with an old friend, an actress. In the interval she said, "He's no good, you would have been so much better." And I said, "Stop it, don't be bitchy. He's brilliant." It took me a while to get used to his very choir boy singing voice, whereas I was singing it much more soulfully, no question. But Andrew likes it a bit, here are the dots, follow them. I would have bent the rules somewhat, there's no question. I would be, I'm more Sinatra than Maria Callas.
Despite the odd detractor, the show many thought would never happen hit bullseye.
The interesting thing I think about Phantom is that with the exception of Masquerade, that we did do a bit of work on in the rehearsal rooms, the rest of the show wasn't altered at all. And it's the only musical I've been involved with where the first preview of the musical was exactly the same as the opening night.
By the end of 1986, Thatcher's Britain was finally hitting its stride. Yuppies flashed their cash. City boys were making a killing. There was a new appetite for sex, glamour, and escapism. And Phantom caught the mood.
Tickets for the show are so hard to get that there have been incidents at this theater that resemble the kinds of scrambles you see at rock concerts.
I remember going in on a Sunday and finding people sleeping on that return line for the next night's performance in sleeping bags and chairs and with mugs of coffee and thermoses and stuff, and I thought it was quite extraordinary.
It cleaned up in a sense. It reached all sorts of audiences now. The rock pop kind of audience was now supplemented by Middle England, you know, was suddenly really fantastically turned on by this story.
After sellout success in London, New York beckoned. On the 26th of January 1988, it was the Big Apple's turn to be gripped by Phantomania. Sarah and Crawford reprised their roles, but she nearly lost the job after a long-running row with the American Actors Union, who said she wasn't a big enough star.
I thought she was marvelous.